Hi, Facebook. Hello, Instagram. How are you all doing tonight? It's good to be back on the Thursday at 9 o'clock live events on Facebook and Instagram. So, like I usually share, if you see me moving my head from left to right, it's because I have two screens in front of me, and I'm on Facebook for one, and I am on another screen for Instagram. So I'm going to be moving my head from left to right, and it's just because of those two screens in front of me. Um, my name is Jumi Olawale. I am a therapist here in Columbus, Ohio. My office is in Grandview, where I see people struggling with relationship issues, anxiety issues, depression issues, stress, just life transition issues and things like that. Tonight, I want to talk to you about people pleasing and the negative effect of being a people pleaser. I really want to delve into why, we feel like we have to please people, what kind of people tend to engage in this kind of behaviors, and really how to overcome it, how to get better with it. So, if you are a people pleaser, you are a good person. Just because you're a people pleaser or you find yourself people pleasing does not make you a bad person or like a crazy person. You're clearly a good person. You have a good heart. You're probably just good to a fault. You are very good to people that are not very good to you. You struggle with reading cues of when you're being taken advantage of or when you're being abused. You will do anything for anyone. You probably are usually exhausted from trying to do everything for anyone and everything for everyone and trying to be everything for everybody. So you might be exhausted. You might find yourself being anxious. You might find yourself being irritable. You might find yourself easily overwhelmed. You might find yourself that you have gained weight or that you have lost weight or that you can't sleep. These are some of the things that people who tend to overextend themselves tend to feel, right? So people who are the type of, the kind of people that tend to people please usually grow up in environments where maybe their parents were highly critical. If you grow up in an environment where your parents are highly critical, what you will learn is maybe you're not good enough. What you learn is you always have to do more. Maybe what you learn is you have to push yourself further. You're constantly trying to get their approval. Sometimes another, thing that can get people to engage in this kind of behaviors is they might come from a family where there has been domestic violence. All right. So when you have seen, a parent get beaten or they are emotionally abused, and the way that they respond to that might make you feel like, okay, maybe the best thing to do in a situation is if you try to make everybody happy, everything will calm down. So kids that tend to grow up in that environment try to please the parents so that they don't set off the abusive parent. Another thing that could happen that could lead to, sort of these type of people pleasing behavior could be that maybe you're a black sheep of your family or you're the scapegoat. And if you want to, learn more about scapegoating and black sheep, go back to, go on Facebook and go look at the video that I did last week. That was on scapegoating. Or maybe you just really had a parent that you observed just was the kind of person that tend to please a lot of people. All right. People who please other people just for the sake of it, because it's usually because they don't want to feel like they're disappointing other people. They really believe at their core that they're good people and they're being nice. But people pleasing is not nice. People pleasing is not being nice. People pleasing is rooted in fear. People pleasing is rooted in the fear of rejection, in the fear of criticism, in the fear of being abandoned, in the fear of being not good enough. People pleasing really shows that you maybe struggle with your self-esteem or maybe you struggle with self-confidence, because what you really need, the purpose of pleasing people without really taking into consideration your health, is because you want that external validation. And it's that external validation that you receive from the outside that makes you feel good, that gives you, it's almost like a thermometer, telling you, how good you are or how not so good you are. And anytime we operate out of a place of fear, we don't tend to make great decisions, right? So people who struggle with people pleasing, it's not just about being nice. It's not just about, wanting to make sure that everybody is happy. It's about the feedback that you get from that. It's about the feeling that that gives you. It's about the satisfaction that you've warped the idea of love, of acceptance, of worthiness with something something that you have to earn on the outside. And without you doing all of these things for people and breaking your back for people, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you're not worthy enough. Maybe nobody will stick around. Maybe nobody will like you, and you just tell yourself that you want to make people happy. You tell yourself that you're being generous, but you're not being generous per se, right? The generosity has a purpose, and it's really about your self-esteem and self-confidence. And what tends to happen is that you may end up having health issues, right? People pleasing can cause you a lot of problems. Okay, if you are the kind of person that tends to people please, which means that you lack appropriate boundaries, you may end up with like high blood pressure, because everything that happens to everybody is important to you. Somebody died here, you've got to go. Somebody had a baby here, you have to go. Somebody needs this, you have to be there. Somebody needs that, you have to be there. You have to call, you have to go. You're everywhere for everyone. Your heart is constantly moving. So you could end up, having high blood pressure from that. You could end up developing anxiety, right? This is very, very common. And the way to relieve that anxiety is really to do for people, because in your mind you've calculated that if I don't do these things, people are going to think I'm a bad person. So you've got to solve that problem, right? Which is something you pretty much create in your mind. Another risk factor is that you can develop ulcers. You can develop ulcers just from worrying so much about things that have absolutely nothing to do with you, engaging yourself in all this drama that has nothing to do with you, overextending yourself even when you don't have the energy to do so. You can end up with chronic stress. You can end up feeling depressed. Okay, you can end up lacking energy. You can end up not being able to sleep because you carry the problems of the whole world on your shoulders. And as a matter of fact, everybody now knows that you're the person that they need to go to whenever there's a problem in the neighborhood. All right, I'm a therapist. People come to me to come and share their concerns with me, to come and talk to me about their problems. But even I, as a therapist, must have some level of boundaries where I emotionally remove myself, right? And I don't see myself as someone that's solving people's problem per se in an active way. I don't see myself as someone that carries all the answers for my clients that come in. I really strongly believe that when my clients come in, they have the answers. The goal is really for me to really help them create the environment that makes that thinking possible, for them to be able to sit long enough in their own emotions so that they can be able to figure out what is going on with themselves internally. But people pleasers feel like they have to solve everybody else's problems. And beyond having health issues, when you're a people pleaser, people can take advantage of you. People can absolutely, yes, take advantage of you. And then you become stuck with these things that people say, like, oh, you're very good at baking. I can't imagine like going anywhere else. Like, I thought like, who's going to bake this thing for me? And I knew that you're going to do it because you're so nice. So now you're stuck. Now you have to bake that cake for someone. For me, what people used to tell me was, Jimmy, you're very good at cooking this jollof rice. And I will feel like, oh, okay. So if someone now asks me, and jollof rice is a Nigerian dish, it's delicious, and I'm very good at making it. And so if somebody comes to me and says, oh, Jimmy, I really would love for you to make me jollof rice, and they've already given me all this compliment about how good my jollof rice is, of course I'm going to want to make them jollof rice. Right? Even when I'm tired, even when I don't have the energy to do it. And what tends to happen then is that people try to just manipulate you, and you get stuck with the mask that they give you, and they tell you how nice you are. So it becomes reinforcing and you can't get yourself out of it. I'll tell you a story about what happened to me many years ago. I was actually pregnant, and someone asked me to cook for a baby shower, but I was heavily pregnant. And at that time, I really lacked boundaries, and I really was a people pleaser. And I usually say yes to everything. So at that time I said yes. The person could clearly see that I was heavily pregnant. And this person would usually ask me to do this and cook that, and I would normally do it. But on this particular day, I was so tired and I was so exhausted. And I woke up that Saturday morning thinking about this baby shower that I have to cook for. And I was just so distressed. I called one of my friends and I called her crying on the phone. And she's like, Jimmy, what's going on? And I'm crying and I'm telling her that, this person asked me to cook for this baby shower and I'm so tired and I can't cook. I just want to sleep. I just want to rest and all that. And she was like, Jimmy, why are you crying? Just call her and tell her you can't do it. Then I was like, but I'm going to disappoint her. And it's last minute and it's a baby shower. Who's going to cook the food? And my friend looked at me and said, this person knows you are heavily pregnant. This person knows that you are heavily pregnant. And so they shouldn't have asked you to make this because they've asked you many, many times to cook for them and you've done it. So this request should never have been made at all. So that's the first thing. And I was like, that's a good point. And then she went ahead and said, call the person and tell them you can't do it. And I was like, but what if they're disappointed? She's like, that's fine. It's better for you to disappoint them. You're pregnant. Don't put your body and your baby at risk. And I was like, okay. So I called the person and I said, I'm so sorry. I can't cook this thing. The person was very and I was, in my mind, I was like, this person is going to be so upset. We're going to have a conversation. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm tired. I was trying to explain, I'm pregnant. Of course, the person knew I was pregnant because I was heavily pregnant. And I was sort of waiting for them to come back with some kind of empathy for me, like, oh no, don't worry about it. Maybe I shouldn't have asked you, whatever. The person was very sort of like, oh, okay, with attitude. And when I went to the baby shower, the person hardly spoke to me. They looked so pissed. They looked so pissed at me that it was like, oh, I'm a bad person, right? And I felt terrible. And they never even came to me to say, Jimmy, don't worry about it. Don't feel guilty about it. It's okay. Clearly, as you can see, the baby shower went forward and everything was fine. And they just made me feel small. And that's when I realized that relationship wasn't, a symbiotic relationship. It's about what they could get from me and the fact that they can call on me anytime. Even if I'm close to having, getting into labor, they felt like they were comfortable to call on me anytime and I will just do their bidding. And I will do whatever it is that they want me to do. But that was my first lesson about the fact that when you are too much into people pleasing, people are ready to take advantage of you. They might not be taking advantage of you on a conscious level, right? It might not be like they woke up in the morning and they said to themselves, I don't know what to do today. Let me go take advantage of this person. No, but you've created an environment where they feel like they can just keep coming to you and they always expect a yes that you can do. And every time you do, they give you all this compliment that is just reinforcing itself. Right? So that's another risk. And also because people pleasing is about approval, right? Go back and check out the scapegoating thing. If this is the kind of family that you come from, you don't want to be criticized. You don't want anybody to feel, to feel bad, because if they feel bad, then you feel like that makes you a bad person, right? If you say no to them, then that will mean that they're going to have bad thoughts about you, right? It makes you very sensitive. It makes you uber sensitive to what people are saying because everything they say matters to you so much. Everything they say carries weight. If they tell you you're a good person today, you're a good person. If they tell you you're not a good person, you're automatically not a good person. You become very, very sensitive, but not sensitive enough for you to actually voice your concerns. Not sensitive enough for you to say, no, this is not okay with me. But sensitive in the sense that even when someone gives you feedback, it feels like criticism. When somebody gives you feedback, all you hear is, I'm a bad person. And it starts to create, internal chaos within you because it's not like you feel comfortable sharing that this is how you feel, but whatever you hear from them makes you feel so sad and so down that you have this internal chaos. On one hand, you feel like a terrible person. On the other hand, you can't tell the person that what they're doing is actually hurtful to you. And you take everything they say, hook, line, and sinker, right? Because whatever the feedback is, what you hear is, I'm a bad person. So which means that it'll be easy to hurt you because you feel like you do everything for everybody and nobody does anything for you. You feel like it doesn't matter how good you are to people, people are never going to be as good to you as you are to them. And when you feel that way, you feel like you are being betrayed by everyone in your life, and you can't help but ask yourself whether or not you're the common denominator. You internalize the disappointments, you internalize the feelings of abandonment, you internalize the feelings like you're being neglected, like you're not good enough, right? So when you're doing a lot for people and you're finding out that people are not doing for you what you've done for them or what you were doing for them, you're not going to tell them, but you can't help but say to yourself, man, my history is people just take from me and they never give me and they're never there for me. So it must mean something about me. It must mean that I'm not a good person. And then you want to, like, overcome that, and you try harder and harder and harder until you try to break your back, right? And it doesn't help you. It doesn't make things better for you. What it actually does, it just makes things worse because you're not sharing. Which leads me to the fact that when you are people pleasing, it's hard for you to make deep emotional connections. Because for you to make deep emotional connections, you first have to be connected to your own emotions. And you're not connected to your own emotions, you're connected to what people are saying. And whenever it lands, what you hear is, I'm not good enough, right? So you're not very honest in your relationships. You don't give your thoughts about things. You tend to agree with everything that everybody says, even though internally you're rolling your eyes all the way to the back of your brain. So it will make it difficult for you to make deep, friendships and deep connections. So people pleasing actually makes you more lonely, which is crazy because you're constantly doing for people, you're constantly giving to people, and yet you feel so lonely. And the reason why you feel so lonely is because you are not allowing people to really come into that space of vulnerability where they can really get to know you. They can really get to know the things that upset you. They can really get to know the things that make you happy. They can get to know the things that disappoint you. You're not willing to go there with people. So ultimately, you isolate yourself and you become your own sounding board. That's all you hear is just it becomes like your own echo chamber. You're hearing yourself over and over again. Which also means that if you're isolated now, it's going to lead to you having low self-esteem, right? Because you really don't believe in yourself. You really don't believe that you're good. You really don't believe that you have something to bring to the table. Because every time you bring something good to the table, people disappoint you, and people disappoint you. You feel like you can't trust people. So then you don't get closer to them. When you don't get close to them, you feel isolated. When you feel isolated, you feel like nobody cares. And when nobody cares, maybe there's something wrong with me, I'm not lovable. And it can take you back to that place, maybe to a time when you were younger in your family where you were criticized and somebody in your family told you how you're just not good enough. And because of that, you can see how things like depression, you can see how things like anxiety, you can see how things like chronic stress, chronic pain, all these things can start to develop because, again, you are holding everything inside and your needs are usually not met. You don't even know how to ask for what you need. You feel like because you can read cues about what everybody else needs, they should also automatically be able to read cues about what you need. And so you're always disappointed. You don't even ask. So what do you need to do? What do you need to do? First of all, you need to know that it is okay to be kind. It is okay to be generous. It is okay to be nice. It is okay to be hospitable. It's okay to do for people. That's not the issue here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a nice person. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be generous with people. I'm not saying you shouldn't be hospitable. I'm saying you should have boundaries around it because your heart is clearly in the right place, right? But what is actually pushing you is fear. What is pushing you is fear that you're going to disappoint someone. And when you're being generous, your intention, what is behind the generosity is just because you want to be generous. But when you're a people pleaser, what's behind that is that you're afraid that people are going to think that you're a bad person, that people are going to feel like you're not good enough, that people are going to have negative thoughts and negative feelings about you. So those things come from two different places. Right? When you are being generous and hospitable, it's really about the other person. You're giving of yourself to them. When you are people pleasing, it's actually a more selfish thing, even though it looks like a selfless act. Because it's really about you and helping yourself feel good. You get that? Like it's about your ego. It's about, you getting that external validation. It can be pretty selfish. And even though that's not what you're trying to work towards. You need to learn that it's okay for you to say no, and that the entire world will not fall apart. Like literally, your saying yes does not hold the center of the universe together. Because if you pass away today, life is going to go on. The clock is going to keep ticking. If it's at a job, they're going to post that position and they're going to find somebody else to do it. So life is always moving on. Life is always moving on. And so you're saying no to something, saying no to people does not mean that everything is going to fall apart, because everything being connected is not dependent on you. You are not the gravitational force that holds the universe together. And it's okay to say no. Everything is not going to fall apart. All the good works that you've done for people all these years are not automatically going to disappear because you said no. And if it does, then I think that speaks a lot about the people than you. If you've done a lot for people and you've been there for them, and now because of one reason or the other, you're unable to do something and you say no, and they abandon that relationship, that just tells you that that was not a symbiotic relationship, that it was about them being able to get something from you and using you. So start learning how to say no in, just in small increments. And I believe that several weeks ago, I did a video on really how to say no. And really one of the tricks around that is if somebody asks you to do something for them, take a pause. You don't always have to say yes right away. You can tell them, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. So go find the video. I did it like maybe about a month or two ago. It's really about learning to say no. How do you go about saying no? It's a skill set, and you need to just start on, with small things, with people that you feel like you can try that with first, okay? Something else is just take time to rest. When you are a people pleaser, everybody's problem is your problem. Everybody's drama is your drama. Everybody's issue is your issue, which means that then you don't rest. Your brain doesn't get a downtime. You're constantly thinking about what other people are doing, what they're saying, how they're feeling, and it makes absolutely no sense because it has nothing to do with you. So take time for yourself to rest. Get a good night's sleep. Because when you don't get a good night's sleep, literally, you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up. So just prioritizing your health. Prioritizing your health includes sleeping, includes eating well, includes paying attention to your health, right? Includes, taking time to go work out in your own way, whether you walk, you're going to ride a bike. It includes having a hobby, because when you have a hobby and you have something that you do that's fun, outside of just pleasing people, you have a different reward system. Your reward system is no longer what people say to you or how they say it to you, when people tell you a good person, when people don't tell you a good person. That's no longer your reward system. You create your own reward system through these hobbies. So if, let's say, you want to knit a scarf, and you start that process. It's a great, mindful activity. And you do it, you create this scarf. That's something that makes you feel good. I tell people all the time, you don't build confidence by sitting down. You build confidence by doing. It's when you do, you try something, you do, you accomplish it, you're like, wow, I'm good at this. That's when your confidence goes up. And then you try something else. I'm good at this. Then your confidence goes up. So instead of you to be wasting so much time running around and doing all these things for these people, what are your hobbies? Do you like, listening to music? Do you like making music? Do you like writing music? Do you like riding a bike? Do you like, painting, sculpting, whatever it is? Go and do it. Go and do it for yourself. Because if you don't do it for yourself, the people that you are pleasing, they're not going to come to you and say to you, hey, I think you're pleasing me too much. You really need to go and get some rest. No, because why would anybody want to do that? Why would anybody want to tell you like, hey, you're doing too much for me? They're not going to do that. They're just going to tell you are so nice. They're going to tell you are so good. Hi, Auntie. They're going to tell you are so good, and you're going to feel good. And it's going to be reinforcing. It's a terrible reinforcing system. Okay? So learn to say no. All right? Go and sleep and rest and find a hobby so you find a different reward system. Don't overcommit yourself to things. Don't overcommit yourself to things. If you can't do something, it is okay. You don't have to be on all the associations at church. You don't have to serve, as an usher in the choir, as a greeter in the cell group, and then, you go to the organization for your school, and then you do all of that stuff, and then you do stuff at home, and then you do stuff for your aunt, for your sister. You don't have to do all of that stuff. You don't. Yesterday I was I'm in this, group for like women, Black mothers, and somebody posted around, what mothers tend to deal with, all the work that we have to do, running around, going to school, doing this for our kids, all these organizations. And I said to them, I said, look, as I've had 2 kids now, I have learned that I don't have to attend every single event at my children's school. I just don't. They always have things that they're doing every time. I have 2 children in school, right? And especially the little one who is in kindergarten. There's always something. And then they always want you to, say you're going to volunteer to do something. Whenever I volunteer, I only volunteer for something that I can buy at the store. So if they want cookies, you better believe I'm not baking those cookies. I'm going to Kroger and I'm going to buy the cookies. And if there are 5 or 10 events during the school year, I probably attend 2. And I'll tell my children, mommy has to go to work. Okay, mommy will attend this particular event, maybe the last day of school, maybe the first day of school, maybe a Valentine something, or, I'll find one thing in between there somewhere. You don't have to do everything. A lot of us have this fear of being left out. A lot of us feel like, oh, if I'm not doing this, if I'm not doing that, I'm going to be left out. I have to be on Facebook. I have to be on Twitter. I have to be on Instagram. I have to know exactly what's going on in everybody's life. I have to go to all these meetings. No, you don't. It's okay to not do things. It's okay to not do everything and be involved in everything and in everyone's life. It's okay to rein it in. I remember one time we had all these parties to go, like 4 parties in one day, right? And we had to think about, okay, we're going to go from, and if you know Nigerian parties, they are like, whoo, they go on forever. And we had to, my husband and I were like, okay, what are we going to do? We have these 4 parties in one day. How are we going to go to all these parties? And really the reason why I want to go to all these parties is because we don't want anybody to be disappointed. We don't want anybody to be upset with us. And we looked at ourselves like, it's been a long week. Let's pick 1 or 2 and just go. And then we'll just, let the other people know that I'm sorry that I couldn't make it. Right? But some of us will not do that. We have to go to all those 4 parties. Why? Because if you don't go to all the 4 parties, they're going to be upset. And within the Nigerian community, not only do you have to go to all the 4 parties, you have to buy clothes for all the 4 parties. You have to get head ties for all the different parties, because Nigerians don't just like to do parties for themselves. They like to say, hey, I want you to wear purple. I want you to wear a head tie like this, that's purple or green. And then you all buy it and you all wear the same purple or green and you all wear the same outfit. You all buy the same materials. You feel like you can't be left out, but you can. And it's okay. You don't have to be all things to all people. Something else that you need to do is that if you find yourself, okay, hold on a second. I just need to read this comment. You are literally talking about my timetable at the moment. I'm always trying to ensure I do so much and trying to please others, yet they don't take time out to think about you. Yes, it's true. But part of that is on you, right? Part of that is your fault, is that you overextend yourself to people unnecessarily. Who came with a microphone that says to you, hey, Northwest boy, I want you to do this for me at 10, at 11, at 12. A lot of times we're the first to volunteer. A lot of times when somebody says they have a need, we don't pause and let other people put their hands up. We just put our hands up first. We want everybody to know that we're the first to volunteer. When there's something going on in the church and they say, come and donate, you want to be the first person in the front because you want to prove to everybody that, yes, I can do this. Why? Why? You're putting yourself in that situation. You don't need to. You don't need to. And because you do so much for people and they don't do for you, you get really ticked off because you expect that they should do what you do. But some people have boundaries. They can check in themselves and go, no, I can't do that. And they're totally okay with it. Like, you're going to get upset. You're going to get over it. Another thing is that I want you to think about distancing. Oh, I always try to help support everyone as I have realized I am a lot of people's center. I give their life balance and it takes a lot out of me. Hey, listen, you are not the center of anyone's world. I just said that a few minutes ago. You are not the center of anyone's world. You are not the gravitational pull that holds the universe together. It is okay to say no. And trust me, their lives are not going to fall apart. They're going to be resourceful because you are blocking them from their ability to be resourceful. You're blocking them from their ability to go seek out help because you're getting in the way because you're always there doling it out, doling it out. And so they don't need to get creative. They don't need to think about it. They don't need to try to figure it out for themselves. Why? Because you're right there. You don't need to be the center of their world. And if they put you in that position and you've also put yourself in that position, you need to rein it in and just take it all the way back. I have two more points. The next point is distance yourself from people, from toxic people that tend to trigger you. And what I mean by that is if you come from a family where maybe your parents or somebody in the family was extremely critical, you might find yourself that, when those family members are there and you go home, they're doing that stuff again, you find yourself just wanting to overdo for them. You find yourself exactly back into that space. Hold on a second. Someone just posted, learning to say no also allowed me to be okay with other people saying no. I used to get so butt hurt when people tell me no. It's true. It's true. Because I always say unbounded people don't like people who are boundaried. Because if you think that you're being nice by not having boundaries, when somebody set their boundaries, you think they're being mean, right? You think they're being mean. So yes, so back to what I was saying, if you find yourself that, people are triggering you and they're making you feel like you're a bad person, and every time you say no to them, they are making you feel terrible and they're triggering you, you might want to distance yourself from them. And sometimes they're family members, Have you found yourself that when you go home, you fall back into the role that you used to play as a child? And when let's say you are the family's black sheep, or let's say you're the family's scapegoat, and you find yourself back into that place, it can be very triggering, and you find yourself wanting to do and prove to everybody. You want to tell everybody all the good things that's going on in your life so that you can get that attaboy and attagirl, and you never get it, and then you leave disappointed. The best thing for you to do is really to try to distance yourself from those places and those people because they can be very toxic, or limit your time that you're with them. If you want to go home, maybe instead of going home for 2 weeks, maybe you want to go home for 1 day or 2 days. Lastly, practice assertiveness. Practice assertiveness. A lot of us don't, have the assertiveness skill set. I come from a culture where assertiveness is not preached, is not encouraged, and it's not praised. If you're assertive, you're just rude and you're proud, right? And assertiveness is just really being able to say, no, this isn't working with me. This is what works for me. Okay. Assertiveness is saying, okay, somebody asks you to do something. You're like, I can understand why you feel that way. I can understand why you need that. But unfortunately, at this time, I'm unable to do it. You are firm. You're concise. It's short. You're not giving some long excuse so that they can find ways like, oh, you said, you're going to work till 9 o'clock. How about you do it for me at 10 o'clock? No. Keep it short and be okay to sit in your skin. And if you find these things difficult, you probably need to go unpack it with a therapist, because if what's driving you are things from childhood, you're probably going to keep running into it over and over again. So I will encourage you to maybe go see a therapist to help you to sort of unpack this. All right. So that's it from me tonight. I'll be back again next week, Thursday at 9 o'clock, which is my usual time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to my email at jumiolawale@gmail.com. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to jumiolawale.com or to my private practice website, which is focuscounselingclinic.com. So if you also haven't checked out my podcast yet, you probably should, because I do have a podcast out. It's called Life, Love, and Therapy. And just check it out, okay? So that's it from me tonight. If you have any questions, any ideas, suggestions, things you want to learn about, things you want to hear about, holler at me, send it to my DM, and I'll see you next week, Thursday at 9 p.m. Thank you, Facebook, and have a good night.